This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you.
Now-
Have a good evening.
Now that we're being recorded, I'll call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Chairman. I will note that we do have a quorum with members Davis, DeVos, Henry, Noel, Rosso, and Urban. We are waiting for our seventh member, Scott Fickner, who I expect to join us shortly. Again, I apologize for our omission of the oath of office. I would ask, would there be any member willing to move the approval of the agenda?
I so move.
That was motion by Urban. Is there a second?
Second.
DeVos will, sorry.
I have a second by Henry. We have a motion to approve the agenda and a second. I will go through the roll call quickly. Member Davis,
Aye.
member DeVos,
Aye.
member Henry,
Aye.
member Noel,
Aye.
member Rosso,
Aye.
member Urban.
Aye.
Motion is passed. The agenda is approved. We'll ask for a motion or corrections to the meeting minutes for the June 4, 2020 meeting.
Mr. Chair, I will move the approval of the minutes as submitted, and this is Rosso, also known as Caller One.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second to Ken's motion?
Noel
second
will
the motion.
second.
I heard a second from Noel. So we have a motion from Ken, seconded by Noel. I will note that member Fickner has joined us at this time. Welcome, Scott. All in favor of, well, I'll do the roll call on the approval of the minutes, and we will start with member DeVos.
Aye.
Member Fickner.
Aye.
Member Henry. You're muted, Kelly.
Aye.
Thank you. Noel.
Aye.
Member Rosso.
Aye.
Member Urban.
Aye.
Chairman Davis.
Aye.
Thank you. We have minutes have been approved. We have no unfinished. Sorry. Before we get to unfinished business, we have a public hearing at this time. The public hearing. I'll read the rules as they apply. The order of the hearing is I will be making a staff presentation, also speaking on behalf of the applicant. After that, we will open it up to public comment. If there's members of the public that would like to speak, we ask that each speaker limit themselves to 5 minutes, that the evidence that they provide is factual, that they refrain from broad statements without any basis of fact. The Planning Commission members will listen to the testimony, but no discussion with the speakers. There's anticipated there won't be dialogue. After all evidence and testimony, we'll close the hearing, and it is expected that their action will be taken on the matter considered by the public hearing later in the meeting. So at this point, I will provide the applicant's presentation. This is a consideration of a preliminary plat of North Traverse Green Subdivision. The legal description of the property as it exists today is Outlot D of Traverse Green Subdivision. The property is zoned R3, multifamily residential, and it is owned wholly by the city of St. Peter. On July 13th of 2020, the city council entered into a purchase agreement with Community Asset Development Group, or as I might refer to as CAD-G as we go forward. That authorized CAD-G to submit the plats that you are considering this evening. The purchase agreement allowed the agreement to be assigned, and CAD-G does intend to assign the agreement to St. Peter Land LLC, a new organization that they would be formed. The plat contemplates lots to accommodate a mixture of multifamily, twin home, and single family construction. There would be 6 twin home developments on lots 2 through 9 and lots 11 through 14 on block 1. Those would be aligned along the northern right-of-way of Clark Street, which was platted when the original Traverse Green subdivision was developed. So Clark Street is currently platted. The subdivision would also accommodate 2 multifamily sites, which would be on lots 1 and lots 10 of block 1. Finally, there would be 12 single-family lots, which would be comprised of lots 15 through 20 of block 1, as well as lots 1 through 6 of block 2. You will note, and as I mentioned, that Clark Street had previously been platted with the original phase of Traverse Green. You will see towards the left side of the preliminary plat a future right-of-way of Cullen Street. And I'll get you aligned with Cullen Street in just a moment. If I can refer you to page 9 of the packet, that shows the concept plan for the Traverse Green neighborhood. What I would say is colored coral is phase 1, and that has already been developed, including the park. What is shown as yellow would be phase 2, and what is shown as purple or dark blue perhaps would be phase 3. You see Clark Street towards the top on page 9, that is platted street, and then you will see everything north of that was platted as Outlot D. The city left Outlot D as an outlot to provide the greatest flexibility as we would move forward with plans. And I would also say that it is likely that if the future phases of the first phase of Traverse Green are undertaken, it is likely that they will be done perhaps outside of the Building Better Neighborhoods program, i.e. we would not plat alleys, and we would perhaps widen some of the lots to accommodate front driveways and such. I would then refer you to page 10, where it shows Outlot D shaded in blue. You can look south and you see Cullen Street as it enters Traverse Green from Traverse Road. Then if you look at the preliminary plat, you can see that the extension of Cullen Street as it would have traversed the first 3 phases of Traverse Green, crossed Clark Street, and then proceeded to the north. On the final plat that you'll be asked to consider, everything what is west of lot 7 block 1 is proposed to be a series of outlots. Those then could somewhat be considered to be speculative or tentative. Just like in Traverse Green, things are subject to change as markets or other matters are taken into consideration. And a preliminary plat has a 12-month shelf life. The subdivision ordinance, and I'm gonna have to put on my cheaters, I apologize for the delay. Approval of the preliminary plat shall be effective for a period of 1 year unless an extension is granted by the city council. The subdivider may file a final plat limited to such portion of the preliminary plat as he or she proposes to record and develop at the time, provided that such portion conforms to all the requirements of this chapter. So, i.e., if the plat is approved and development commences on what would be on the final plat, and then they come in with a second phase that does conform to the preliminary plat within 12 months, it's expected that that would be approved. The plat had been prepared by engineers engaged by CADG. It had been reviewed by Public Works Director Moulton and his staff. It had been reviewed by Jeffrey Damas, the engineer that's been assigned to us by Moulton and Mank. The plat meets all of the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. All of the lots created conform to the minimum. Ken, are we getting a little feedback from you? Could you turn your mic off? I'm getting some scratch or call out. I have a caller 2 now. Caller 2, perhaps it's you. You don't need to identify yourself, but if you could mute your microphone until it's time for the public hearing. We're getting a little feedback from somewhere, and I see that that perhaps it might like. and caller 2 perhaps disappeared. I apologize. I didn't mean to offend anyone. So as again, the lots that are created conform to the minimum size and width required in the zoning code for an R3 zoning district. And as we have reviewed it with Public Works and the engineer, it meets all the adopted utility standards of the city council. It would be my recommendation that you would approve the plat. It is anticipated there will be minor alterations. For instance, the assignment to St. Peter Land LLC needs to have a little bit more space in the upper right-hand corner for the title or recording certificate that the county recorder will then put on the paper. And there may be some minor text changes that would be required by the county recorder. Each county recorder has their own somewhat set of standards that each determines they believe conforms to statute. So there are some minor differences from county to county. And since we're using engineers that perhaps haven't worked in Nicola County to the extent we do expect that the county recorder perhaps will require some additional changes. I don't have anything else to add. I would say I wanted to introduce, it's Dave Picorni. He is from CADG. He is the pre-development staff that we've been working on this. Mr. Picorni is a retired former city administrator of Chaska. It's been a pleasure to work with him. Dave, do you have anything to add regarding the plat? I'm not hearing you, Dave, and I do see your microphone is on. Well, we can't hear you, Dave.
Hear me now?
I barely, like a whisper.
Well, I didn't have anything to say anyway, so it was fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dave. Can others are having the same experience?
Yeah, he said he didn't have anything to say anyway, so it's fine, I think.
Okay, well, thank you, David. At this point then, I will conclude my presentation and we will open it up to the participants in the public hearing. You'd be asked to turn on your microphone. You'd be asked to share your name and your address for the record. You'd be given a 5-minute opportunity to address the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the Planning Commission? Please just turn on your microphone. I don't see anyone, so I'm not anticipating anything, but I'll ask a second time. If you would like to participate in the public hearing portion of the meeting and make a comment either in favor or in opposition to the plat, feel free to do so at this time. I didn't hear anything. So I will note that the public hearing was opened at 5:44 p.m. And I will note that the public hearing then would be closed at 5:45 p.m. At this point, I'm going to open it up to questions, comments from the members, and I'll go in the order, if I can find my order. And we will start with Member Fickner. Scott, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I've reviewed it. I think it's pretty well laid out, so I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you, Scott. Member Henry, comments, questions?
I had a comment and a question. My comment is I appreciate finally another market rate apartment and housing coming to town. I myself lived at Central Square Apartments. It was after I'd gone through a divorce. It was a wonderful place for my family and I to be. It was really a good experience, and it's the kind of housing we need more of. Saying that, we were on the hunt last year for an apartment. The last couple of years, we've been trying to find a different apartment, and it's really hard to find an available space and a space that I would want to live in. One of our more recent apartment buildings built in the community just down the way, there aren't windows in the bedrooms. So we have windowless bedrooms. somehow in an apartment building, brand new apartment building in town. I guess I'm concerned and questioning how we go through the process of reviewing stuff like that, if we have to say in any of that.
Well, I will note that bedrooms are not required to have windows by code. So if the city is not involved in the development, in this instance, the city council owns the property. So by purchase agreement, Mr. Picorni's group has allowed the city council to provide approval of the site plan, the building materials, the exterior finish. That is all being outside of the statutorial process or our ordinances. And the city is only afforded that opportunity because we own the property and they consented to it in the purchase agreement. So if it's a private development, and I'm not exactly sure which one, but I believe I know which one you're referring to, we don't have the ability to say you got to have windows in a bedroom if the International Building Code doesn't require it.
Okay. So being that we are, you did not list floor plans or anything like that. So being city owned, that's not something, or is it something that we go to the city council meeting and make a recommendation there?
That would be the appropriate thing, Ms. Henry. The city council has reserved the ability to review the site plan, anything such as the market, anything such as the rates that are charged for the apartments, the mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The city council has reserved that for themselves, again, through the purchase agreement. So there is not a statutorial role for the planning commission to act in that case.
Super. That's it. That's all I had then.
Thank you. Where's my list here? Here it is. Member Noel, comments, questions, please.
I would only echo Henry's remarks about the need for this kind of housing in St. Peter. There's a real lack of it, and so I'm very pleased that this will be coming to town.
Thank you. Member Rosso.
Yes, I have a comment and then several questions, if I may. The comment is, although I've been known to be noisy on occasion, I would like to claim absolute innocence to my the feedback coming from me. I'm being facetious. I don't think it's coming from me, but anyway, I don't think I did it. Right or wrong?
I don't think it's you, Ken, because it stopped when caller 2 left.
That's a relief. No, I'm kidding, of course. First of all, on the lots 2 to 9, which would be the townhomes, do you know what the square footage of those would be?
No, they're not required to submit, the site plan at this point. They're only seeking approval of the plat. It would have to meet all of the requirements as to setbacks, except it would share an interior line, whether that's either in the residence or perhaps the garage is a butt. It would be very similar to the products in Welco West and Welco North. So twin homes, but they do have to meet all of the side yard requirements. They have to meet the lot coverage ratio. They have to have the appropriate rear yard, front yard setback, et cetera.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, the intent would probably be to have them essentially identical in appearance, or would there be some variability for added interest? You probably don't know that at this point.
I don't know that. And again, Ken, I think that perhaps is a little bit outside of the platting process. Again, we're getting into design matters and things that the city council certainly could chime in on that if they would like to require that they all have a different facade or presentation to the public street. But perhaps it's not necessarily pertinent to the plat, if you will.
No, I understand that. It might be pertinent to the appeal of the community, though, that particular development. So
Yep.
It's something perhaps the council would choose to explore if in their wisdom they want to do that. Okay,
Certainly.
secondly, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say we have the 2 council members that are with us tonight, so I'll make sure that they will bring that back with their colleagues.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And then secondly, as was indicated earlier, there is certainly a need for additional housing in St. Peter, and I'm very comfortable with that. I guess I'm curious, so are 66 units plus an additional 66 unit complex likely to follow? Are we assuming those are people that would relocate within the community or from outside the community, or a combination thereof?
I think my thought would be generally a combination thereof. I don't know exactly how perhaps the Drummer 40 unit filled, whether that was out of town folks. But we do kind of have a real time as things fill up, because as properties are changed over from Drummer development, things of that nature, we do kind of get to gauge how fast things are filling. But I don't necessarily know the address of where they had come from.
So I guess the gist of my question is, are we seeing an influx of population growth?
Yeah, I'm quite certain that when the census 2020 is released, we're going to be over 12,000 in population. So that would be about a 950, 850 rise over the last 10 years, where projections had been about an 8.5% annual, or 8.5% increase over the decade. So about 0.8 per year. We seem to have been hitting that trend coming out of the recession, of course.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Thirdly, when do you anticipate the Clark Street extension would be completed?
That will be done in concert with the development of the CAD-G property.
Okay.
So yeah, the city will be undertaking the construction of Clark Street as a city project, and CAD-G then, as per the terms of a development agreement, will be assessed for the north half of that. The southern half then would remain as a future assessment against the properties that are south of Clark Street, and would be due as they are developed, annexed, etc.
Okay, thank you. And then
if I can add, Ken, if I could add, just to be clear, Clark Street is only going to be built at this point. It's planned to the edge of what's proposed to be the final plat. So it's only going to be built to Lot 7, the western edge of Lot 7, Block 1. And just like they're doing in the Windsor Pond development, as future phases are undertaken, then the roadway will be physically extended, the drivable surface, etc.
Okay, excellent. My fourth question, I only have one more after this, so please bear with me. The lots on the, I guess would be Block 2, and then lots 1 through 6 and 15 through 20. Are they anticipated then to be single family lots, or would that be potentially townhomes or something different?
Well, I will say that I should have pointed it out at the beginning of the meeting, that CAD-G is only purchasing what lies east of the future Cullen Street right-of-way. So all of the properties in Block 2 will maintain as city-owned. And if you preview the final plat, you'll notice that it's shown as just a big outlot. And again, they're just kind of shown as a placeholder on Block 2. I would ask Mr. Percorny, I don't know if his microphone is working, but they would be large single-family lots if they were developed in that manner.
Right.
But I will
my
note
mic is working now. My mic is working now. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Dave.
Yeah. So yeah, the plan would be that those would be a single family. And at your other question about the townhome or the twin homes, we would envision they would be similar in architecture. We haven't come up with a design yet. That's really kind of our next phase. And we're fine if we submit that to the city for review of what the exterior look will be like.
Thank you,
Okay,
David.
thank you. My last, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope, Ken, I think you're hearing yourself.
Okay, well, I don't have anything important to say to me, so I'll try this again. Okay.
There you go. Now we can hear you. We had an echo or a reverb.
Okay, sorry about that. The last question I had really ties into the previous question. Back a little, well, I guess about 3.5 years ago, when I was first appointed to the commission, that's when the Traverse Green was finalized, and I had very little knowledge of it at that time. but one of the reasons I supported it was because of the understanding that there would be starter home lots as well as larger lots for single family homes that were a different price range. And as I mentioned earlier, I certainly understand the need for multifamily, and I have no problem with that at all. But my concern is long-term. First of all, those lots on Cullen Street, they're very nice size as they are currently listed on the plat. But if they're subdivided, then we have more lots that are really starter home lots, which is fine. But I think there's been some evidence, as you are well aware, that there's not been a great demand, or at least the demand that was anticipated in the Travers Green development. And I'm also, for lack of a better word, disappointed that the portion of the development that was intended originally, as I understood it, to be used for larger lots and a different price point on the homes is now some of that's being converted to multifamily. And I recognize multifamily was part of the plan at some point, but I do have significant concerns on that, and that really boils down to we need a balance in housing, and at this point we don't seem to be really attaining that. Again, balance is very important in terms of multifamily, townhome, starter home lots, whatever. But it's very difficult to find a lot in town for somebody that wants to build a medium to higher priced home. And part of that is there just hasn't been development. And as you indicated, the city sent out requests for proposals, did not receive any. And Russ, as you and I visited the other day, there may be some incentives that could be provided with that. But with that, I'll just, I guess that concludes my question. So with that, I'll just for once be quiet.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Urban, comments, questions?
Nothing that's not already been said.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Chairman Davis.
Yeah. Again, I reiterate I appreciate the nature of this development. I have a bit of confusion is where is lot 1 of block 1? Is it that larger area? Is it that big?
Yeah, it's that larger area.
Okay. And do we have any sense of, not that it matters now, but where an apartment building would be within that area? Or
it would be somewhat you can see the main entry coming in off of Clark Street, and you'll show it's somewhat centered on that lot, because the plan would be to build the mirror image on lot 10, and they would share kind of a common courtyard between the two of them.
on lot 10?
Lot 10 is like the second one.
Oh yeah,
the big
I
one.
see. Yeah.
Yep. So lot 1 ends at the western terminus of lot 7.
Yeah.
If you flip to the final plat, you can kind of see that lot 1, block 1.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the building would be L-shaped, kind of like you see the utility easement.
Uh-huh.
And then as the property is built on block 10 in the future, it would be an L-shaped facing the opposite direction.
Okay.
So that they'd share a common courtyard, playground that's privately developed, etc.
Okay.
It
And
will
in
meet.
the area where it says block 1, that would be just grassy area, undeveloped area?
Well, he'll have a parking area. Certainly he's going to have parking. They'll have 30 enclosed garage spaces for tenants to rent, but then they'll have surface parking also.
Okay.
I will say that the site plan that will be considered is not anticipated to require any type of variance or any type of different from what's allowed or required in the ordinance as to setback, parking, all of those issues.
Okay. And then I'm sorry, this is sort of off topic, but just out of curiosity, I assume the plan for Clark Street is that it eventually goes and connects with Sunrise Drive?
If you will look at page 11 of the agenda.
Oops.
Well, actually, page 12 shows it better. You will see Clark Street right now ends in the Standard Lumber subdivision at the western end of Warren Park. Ultimately, Clark Street is expected then to extend across the Larry and Bonnie Enns property, which is currently outside the city limits and used for agriculture. It would then extend across the Ben Pell interests north of the dry basin. And then it would extend to the western side of Cassaw 20 or Nicollet Avenue. And you can see it both on page 11 and page 12, the future planning. And those documents are directly from the 2016 comp plan. And I don't think changed from when we did the 2005 comp plan. Does that answer your question, Andrew?
I think so. The maps are all upside down and sideways, so I'll have to crick my neck, but I'll look at them.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all. I have no other concerns.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Member DeVos.
First, I'd like to say thank you to Kelly for bringing up the concerns about windows in apartments. Honestly, didn't cross my mind. But or windows in bedrooms, I mean. That was something that didn't cross my mind. It is something that we need to keep in mind, particularly since we do have an opportunity to have some influence over it. I will say at least the city council, we got a preliminary plan for the for the outside of the 66 unit complex, and that was, I thought it was great. It was a beautiful design that I think would fit in well with the community. I don't have any problem with it going forward. But I do appreciate Kelly's comments, because that is something to keep in mind as we look at further plans and improving things going forward. Because like I said, that's the information we don't necessarily think of or think about at the outset ourselves. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Brad. I think I started with Scott, so I think everybody had an opportunity. I'm going to go through one more time and let you provide input if you'd wish. Scott, anything to add?
No, I thought they were very good comments, and we certainly do need housing up there, so I liked it.
Okay, thank you. Member Henry.
No, excited to see the plans and excited to see how this goes through. Sorry, council members, I'll be bugging you.
Thank you. Member Noel.
I was going to say that there was really good information. I think it was all in one of the council's meeting packets. If I can find that link, I would be willing to share that with others, because there are some really good, some really good, it would give you a really good idea of what's being planned. So that's all I would say.
Thank you. Member Rosso.
One question: who chooses and how are they selected, the street names?
I have a list that I inherited from a guy you might remember called Bob Wettergren. And
Okay.
so these were early champions of the community. Lizzie Cullen was the first female school teacher in the St. Peter School District. So Cook, I think, in Traverse Green was perhaps the organizer of the first Nicollet County Fair. So yeah, we have a list. If it sounds too familiar to an existing street name, I mean, we'd like to have a redo on Churchill Street. It's so close to Church Street, and it may cause some confusion with 911 dispatch and such. So as long as there's no confusion, we've kind of been pulling out of that list. Delaney Street was another one we did. He was the first postmaster in St. Peter. So that's kind of how they're chosen, Ken. If you have suggestions, let me know.
Willie Street, has that been listed on your packet there?
It would probably need to be a one-way to the left.
No, I just, they have historical significance, which makes perfect sense. I have no other comments other than what I'd expressed earlier. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ken, I will say that we use our list when the city is doing a development, like Traverse Green or Nicollet Meadows. Private developers get to suggest their own street names. And so
Sure.
obviously
Okay.
nothing commercial or something of that nature.
Certainly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Member Urban.
Nope, I got nothing.
Okay, Member Chairman Davis
I'm fine, thank you.
and DeVos.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, members, there has been a resolution prepared that is on page 14 and 15 of your packet that does contemplate your recommendation of approval to the city council. If anyone is inclined to make an alternative motion to recommend denial, then I would suggest it would be appropriate to develop a couple more whereas clauses to establish the basis for the denial. We typically, if it's denied, we need to provide written notice to the developer owner within 10 days, giving them the specifics as of such. So would anyone be inclined to move the resolution beginning on page 14 or 15 or recommend a move an alternative?
I would move it.
I would
We have a
second.
motion by Davis. Oh, sorry, who was the second?
Second, Urban.
We have a second by Urban. Motion by Davis, second by Urban to adopt the resolution prepared on page 14 and 15 of the packet. I will go through first and ask if there's any discussion on the motion, and we'll start with Member Henry.
No discussion.
Member Noel.
Nothing further.
Member Rosso.
I have nothing.
Member Urban.
I have nothing.
Member Davis.
No, thank you.
Member DeVos.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Member Fichtner.
Nothing for me.
Okay, I will call the roll then on the motion to approve the resolution, and I will start with Member Noel.
Aye.
Member Rosso.
With a quick explanation, I have no opposition to the development of the multifamily housing, but for the reasons I cited earlier, I'm going to have to vote nay.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Member Urban.
Aye.
Member Davis.
Aye.
Member DeVos.
Aye.
Member Fichtner.
Aye.
And Member Henry.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion has passed. The preliminary plat is recommended to the city council. Then you are asked to recommend the final plat to the city council. You'll notice the final plat just depicts lots 1 through 7 of block 1 as being part of the final plat. The balance of the properties in block 1 then would be in the final plat as a single outlot. You will notice now that the Clark or Cullen Street right of way is shown as an outlot because we're not platting Cullen Street. And again, to provide the greatest flexibility as a project would go forward, but we're pretty certain that that's where Cullen Street is going to be. And then finally, that the properties owned west of outlot B, which is the Cullen Street right of way, would be a single outlot, and all those interior lot lines are removed. You will notice that the final plat shows the utility easements, and the easements that are in that hatch line kind of looks like a backwards 7 on lot 1, block 1. That would be easements for the utilities that the city would own and we would maintain and repair. So they need to put them in easements, obviously, so we have access to them. If a parking lot is over the easement, that's not necessarily a difficult because we will rip up the pavement of the parking lot, obviously, to access pipes that we would need to. I would ask, are there questions or comments regarding the final plat? And I will start with Member Rosso.
No comments.
Member Urban.
No comment.
Member Davis.
Nope.
Member DeVos.
Nothing.
Member Fichtner.
I have nothing.
Member Henry.
No comment.
And I think I started with Ken, so Member Noel.
Nothing further.
Okay, once again, there is a resolution prepared in your packet that contemplates recommending that the city council accept the final plat of North Traverse Green subdivision. And again, this is subject to some minor text changes on that, moving it for the 3 inches for the recording and for the change of the name, given the assignment that the city council approved based on the purchase agreement. That resolution is on page 17 Would anyone be inclined to move the resolution or an alternative?
I'd move the
Ross
resolution.
will move.
I'm going to go with a motion by Urban. Was that a second by DeVos?
Yes.
Motion by Urban, seconded by DeVos to adopt the resolution beginning on page 17, recommending that the city council accept the final plat of North Traverse Green subdivision. I will, now that we have a motion and a second, we'll have one more opportunity to comment, and I'll begin with member Urban.
No comment.
Member Davis?
No, thank you.
Member DeVos?
No comment.
Member Fickner?
No comment.
Member Henry?
No comment.
Member Noel?
Nothing to add.
Member Rosso?
No additional comment.
Thank you all. At this point, then, I will call the roll, and I will begin with Chairman Davis.
Aye.
Member DeVos?
Aye.
Member Fickner?
Aye.
Member Henry?
Aye.
Member Noel?
Aye.
Pardon me. Member Rosso?
Once again, for the same concerns I expressed earlier, nay.
Thank you, Ken. Member Urban?
Aye.
Motion passed on a vote of 6-1, and the city council is expected to be considering both of those matters at their meeting on the 28th, which will be a public meeting. There will be opportunities, as there is for every city council member, for any member of the citizenry or otherwise to come address the council on an item that is either on or not on the agenda. So that's a regular opportunity that you have or others have to address the council. At this point, I will move on to the reports. If you'll recall the Wheelburg and Gustavus annexation that we had undertaken, if you do, forget about it. It was not accepted by the state of Minnesota. So here's what we have found. It was annexed under the basis that it was completely surrounded by other lands that are in the city limits. So we sent it up to the state, and then they actually review it to make sure it does meet the requirement that is 100% completely surrounded by the city limits. And it is not. And no one knew it. There is a half a rod with the property, 8.25 feet, so 8 feet 3 inches of land on what I'm going to call the western edge of the cemetery. That was quit claimed to the cemetery by another church religious interests. At that point, it seems like the cemetery had already been in the city limits, but this 8.25 feet of land was not. But when the county brought it in, since they assembled it with the cemetery property, they then annexed it unofficially, which the state doesn't allow. So we're trying to remedy the matter to include that 8.25 feet, and it's likely we'll have to undertake the entire annexation. Luckily, it's not anything that's timely. There's no one in there that lives there that has been voting illegally in a city election. But that 8.25 foot parcel of land, it does not show up on any Nicollet County map. It does not show up on any map maintained by Bolton and Mank or the city otherwise. So just an oddity, if you will. The state has graciously allowed us to have the fee we paid applied to the one that we do, that hopefully they'll get it right. So we're going to undertake that. What we have asked is, can the state give us a map that shows us what is in the city limits and what isn't, instead of us telling them and then having to come back. So bear with us as we get that. Again, it's not a timely matter. The other item is Baker Fieldhouse. Brad Baker has applied for a conditional use to establish what is known as indoor sports and recreation on property at the bend of 3rd Street, just south of Hy-Vee. So where 3rd Street makes the right turn back towards Minnesota Avenue, there's about a half block length of property behind what some old timers would know as the old UBC lumberyard. It is zoned C4. It's subject to the highway or gateway overlay district. And they're looking to do a field house where they can have batting cages, some indoor pitching mounds, perhaps then lease some space to an archery club or some interest like that might do it. but it's looking to be privately funded. But indoor sports and recreation is a conditional use. So we have scheduled a conditional use public hearing with the Board of Zoning Appeals for, I believe it's the 15th of October. So we will need to assemble as a planning commission on October 1st to consider the conditional use, but frankly, I don't see a lot. It's a field house in the middle of a commercial district with a sufficiently sized lot to accommodate the parking and all that. It doesn't have uses that I would consider necessarily to be incompatible. But I'll give it a thorough vetting and make a report to you, and you can consider that on the 1st. The other issue that you will be considering on the 1st, as being that it is in the Gateway District, the ordinance requires what we somewhat consider to be an enhanced exterior finish. And you can almost refer to this as the Dollar General ordinance. When they put the Dollar General with a nearly fully fabricated metal finish, it was kind of thought that that was not necessarily desirable in such a visible part of St. Peter. They also then put the back end of the store with the loading dock and the garbage corral facing Highway 169, and a former council member thought that perhaps your visit down 169 would resemble driving down an alley. So that's what triggered the Gateway Overlay District. The district requires the exterior finishes then to be alternative to the metal siding. So any exterior facade is limited to 25% of that material. The balance has to be glass, brick, block, stone, split face stone. We've allowed EFS, which is that synthetic stucco. The bakers are of an opinion that if they have to meet those standards on all 4 facades, the project's not worthy. It's not cost effective, and it's unlikely that they would go forward. Now, that's not a reason to adopt an ordinance amendment, but they have applied to have an adoption to the text of the Gateway Overlay District to only require the enhanced finished on a facade if it is exposed to a public street. So if it's exposed to an alley, it wouldn't need to have that exterior finish. But if it's exposed to 169, it's exposed to Old Minnesota or any public street, it would still be required to do that. As talking to City Administrator Prafke, he and I are very likely to support that to try to bring us perhaps into a competitive balance as people are looking to build commercial opportunities in St. Peter. So that'll be on your agenda also, because you need to certainly comment on the text amendment to the zoning ordinance. You need to comment on any conditions you feel may be appropriate for conditional use. So you'll have the Baker Fieldhouse on your agenda for the 1st. And again, the Board of Zoning Appeals that will make the final decision on the conditional use permit is scheduled to meet on the 15th. And the City Council will consider the ordinance amendment. It's got to go back to the 26th of October because new state law says we got to give 30 days notice of a posted notice of an ordinance amendment. So I would ask if there's any questions regarding either of those matters. You can just feel free to turn on your microphone. I don't know if we'll be overwhelmed. Hearing nothing. Oh, go ahead.
Just want to note that my wife's favorite intersection in St. Peter is the 3rd and 3rd Street sidewalk intersection. So.
Gotcha.
So the location, proposed location for the future field house, just so I'm understanding it, is it where like on the part of the block where Cambria is at, or is it across the street where there's a field and like a metal building?
Joe, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm getting like a reverb or a canyon. Could someone interpret? Yeah.
Joe, were you asking whether this is going to be on the east or west side of 3rd Street?
East. Joe, I don't know if you remember the old UBC lumberyard, but kind of behind Cambria there. And
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yep, that's where it's going to be, kind of behind Cambria. And the 2 buildings, I think there's a tax service in one, perhaps. Those are owned, I believe, by the Logger interests. So you go Logger, Cambria, Logger.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep, and it is properly zoned. It's zoned highway commercial and subject to the Gateway Overlay. So
they would have 3 sides of street frontage then, right?
no, just the 2. The one facing 3rd Street on the north end of their building and the one facing 3rd Street on the south side of their building. There is no alley behind them. Well, that wouldn't count as a public street, but that's what we're suggesting. But if you're like Don's Appliance and this would be applied, you'd need to do it on the old Minnesota and the Highway 169 side. Other questions? I can just report on one other thing. We're diligently trying to have the bowling alley debris removed. We have accepted bids. We've got it all set to go. We're just waiting for the judge to say, go ahead and clean it up and assess it to the property. In a matter that's happening at the same time, then we are hoping that both the property owner that perhaps has some larger concerns and the bank would quit claim the property to the city, and we would take ownership. We have to clean it up anyway. It's going to be, and if we spend the money at this point, it would be an assessment against the property. I would anticipate tax forfeiture at some point years down the line, where the city then would likely obtain the property. So if we can obtain it now, we can take action to perhaps have some other considerations or other development for that property. So I don't have anything else for the good of the cause. Would anyone be inclined to move adjournment?
So moved. This is Russell.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 I was just gonna say, is there anyone opposed? Say aye. Hearing none, I'm gonna declare that a unanimous vote. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening. Be very safe and very well.
Night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.